Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Born in the year of 1993, mother abandoned me at birth. 22-year-old father abandons all his dreams to raise me alone. Times are tough as fuck as he has to juggle work and me. Whenever he has free time, we play video together. We move from old Nintendo and shit to WoW rating and so on. Helps me with school and even encourages me to study in a university. Follow his advice and manage to finish uni with engineer degree. 1 year ago, he gets diagnosed with lung cancer. Time goes on and it gets so bad he can't get out of the hospital bed. Visit him every single day. Week ago.
Hey Anon, was I a good father?
You were the best, Dad.
Heh, thanks son.
2 seconds later. Flatline. Today, finally decide to organize his stuff in his old bedroom. Find a notebook. In details he wrote every day he spent with me.
Today me and Anon went to carnival and did etc.
Every day ends with,
I hope I'm doing enough for him.
last entry is before he enters the hospital.
All these years I did what I could. I don't regret her abandoning me and Anon and not even calling once. I just hope Anon has grown up to be the best he can.
You were the best old man, Godspeed to you. Be me many years ago. Regular teenage kid going through teenage bullshit. Girlfriend cheats with some guy and dumps me. Think it's the end of the world and don't know how to cope. Dad was a heavy smoker. Smoked a pack or two a day. Steal cigarettes from Dad and go up to the roof of my house and thinking smoking and crying like a beta would help me. Hear sound, so chuck the cig I lit up and hide the cig packet behind me. Dad comes up to the roof. Looks at me and has his hands out with palm open.
Give me the cigarettes Anon.
Act like I don't know what he's talking about. He moves me aside and finds them behind me. Sits down next to me and asks,
Why are you smoking son?
Tell him about what happened and start breaking down. Say I took these because he always said he smoked because of stress and it helps. He starts off with,
You know, it's not the same thing.
pauses for what seems like an eternity.
You know what? It's bullshit. It doesn't help me and it won't help you.
Crushes the entire cigarette box in his massive hand like it was paper. Throws the lighter and it explodes.
I promise you I'll never touch another cigarette again and I want you to promise me you'll do the same.
He actually kept his word and quit smoking cold turkey. It's been 12 years since he smoked. MFW, he actually gave it up because he didn't want me to fuck myself up. Going back to story. Next day takes me to gym.
If you're angry, then take it out in here.
I continue to lift and make good gains. Fast forward 12 years. That is now, my wife just delivered my child last month. See him holding my child in his arms and seeing his eyes light up like Christmas. Still healthy as a horse. I love you, you old bastard. Thanks for everything you have done for me. Do you have a Chad Dad? Fit.
Be me 2 years old. Mom and dad divorce. Dad moves to California. See dad once a year for Christmas. Dad dies of throat cancer 1 week before I deploy to Iraq. Grew up isolated from family, so no male role model in life. Mother's only son. Siblings are sisters. No idea what I am supposed to be like as a man. Only positive masculine influence is a Norwegian yak fetish forum. Act like spastic as a 30-year-old boomer. Want to fucking KMS every day. Work out as an alternative to checking out. TFW4 Chan is my father figure.
Be me. Every Saturday of my childhood. Dad lets me watch cartoons until he wakes up and has his breakfast and coffee. I naturally wake up as early as 6 a.m. and run to squeeze in as much toon action as I can. By 9:10 a.m. he's walking into the living room and announcing we have work to do. Do yard work or chores until about 2 to 4 p.m. Then free to waste my time however I like the rest of the day. Kind of resent him for not letting me play all day like my friends' dads. Fast forward a decade or two. Be me. No soy addiction to media. Brain gets massive dopamine rush from a day of productivity in the sun. Have no problem waking up early every day to play with my daughter. Genuine appreciation for each beautiful day on the earth. Never have a problem keeping and advancing in a job because of iron work ethic. Literally waste a grand total of half an hour on these boards a day because my hands get restless without a project. Thanks, Dad.
Not gonna lie, brothers. This thread just really hit me differently, and it moved me greatly reading all of your stories. I guess I will try my best to tell you mine. My dad passed away just over a year ago due to a bender on drugs, his last bender. My dad was definitely not a Chad dad, as he wasn't around very often. My dad was a good person, he loved me and his family, but he was just extremely depressed, and had a problem with drinking and drugs. He never hit me or my mom, or stole, none of that. Lied a lot, out of shame. All my life I was ashamed of my dad for always being gone, then coming back, gone again, etc. I eventually became a teenager, and at some point I just simply ignored him when he reached out to me. I didn't want anything to do with him. I am naive to drug addiction. He had a problem, and yes, men should be able to take care of their own shit, but at the end of the day he couldn't do it on his own. He needed help, and never received that from anyone, as most addicts never do. It has been over a year since his passing. I am now 22 years old, and I hold a lot of regret. I wish I wasn't so mean to him, and I hadn't ignored him when he wished me happy birthday via Facebook, and asking to hang out with me, telling me he loved me. A part of me thinks maybe my dad would still be around if I had reached out and tried to help him. I will regret that for the rest of my life. The only thing I can do is honor his memory and be the best man I can be. I have a home gym, and I keep his ashes with me, in some hope he is watching me better myself and become the strongest person I can possibly become, for him. I miss you, Dad.
I've posted this once a long time ago, but my dad is the man. Born working poor Irish and worked his whole life. First teaching physics, chemistry, math, and then putting himself through med school at night with an iron will. He's so intelligent that it's almost frightening, but is the most charming guy that leaves everyone with a positive feeling when he leaves. He loves my brother and I unconditionally, and there's nothing he wouldn't do for the two of us. Essentially, his whole life was devoted to providing a better life for us than what he had, and teaching us how to work hard and be successful, fulfilled people. We grew up as a family of hikers from the time we were born. Like being carried in the backpacks up mountains as babies, and I'll never forget when I was around 6 that I had lost my favorite teddy bear on the hike. It was an absolutely hellacious deluge and getting darker by the minute. But he hiked us out to the car and went back with a headlamp looking for my bear. He was out there for what seemed like an eternity, as it felt like the rain was just swallowing us up. But I'll never forget until the day I die this frozen mental image of him emerging from the Stygian black woods in this awful thunderstorm holding my teddy bear. If I could be half the man that he is, I would consider that a life well lived. I love him deeply, and I know I'll be devastated when he dies. He's getting older now but is still active, but I can tell he's slowing down a bit, and that I'll step up and be the man of the family when he's gone. He's always had a bit of trouble communicating that he loves my brother and I, but it shines through his every action, and I'm very proud to be his son. I'm going to see him on Monday, and my mom, who is phenomenal as well, but this is a dad thread, and tell him thank you for everything and that I love him. We're all going to make it.
Dad came from a dirt poor family in western suburbs of a poor city. Worked full-time, found a better job. Got his first car, bought it from a mate nearly for free because it didn't have a gearbox. Rented books from the library, put one in by himself with leftover car parts he could buy from local mechanics. Work bosses were so impressed they paid for his metallurgy degree. Finished it, ran a factory of 150 guys in the steel works. Economy went to shit with steel production. Studied a master's of business with 3 kids and worked full-time while buying, fixing up old homes. Had the worst temper, mostly remember getting flogged for being disrespectful. Can literally fix anything, taught himself mathematics and a code at the age of 40 to replace his old statistical forecasting job. By far the most intelligent man I've ever met. Literally can fix anything, rigged up 3 to 4 fridges with PIDs and his own land site to automatically brew beer he likes. Replaced half the engine in my 1985 Nissan Pulsar just so I had something to drive to school. Made me a DIY from scratch RC car for my 16th birthday, including hand-typed notes to learn to program the transmitter receiver from scratch. When my sisters were 6, he had homemade cards laminated for each letter of the alphabet and a few thousand words, and basic math and algebra for later years to teach us. Used to read us encyclopedia entries on topics we'd want to hear about instead of bedtime stories. Watched Alien at the age of 7 for the first time when we had the house to ourselves for a night. Scared the shit out of me, but one of the best memories of my life. He now owns a 3-story mansion with a lift overlooking the beach. He's a millionaire. But still uses my sister's 20-year-old primary school bag as a tackle kit when we go fishing. Most morally developed person I've ever met, has a very careful and measured response to any problem, which usually cuts right to its core and allows the best outcome for all parties considered. One more entry on this one. Never smacked me unless I deserved it. Used to use the words, if you tell me the truth, I cannot get angry at you. Whenever I fucked up, made a mistake, I would tell him, fearing no recourse. Never receiving any. We would just solve the problem together. Whenever I lied, cheated, stole, or embellished, I was given a second chance to tell the whole truth as well as I could. Failing to do so would result in instantaneous punishment. The height of dishonor is to directly lie, or tell the truth to deliberately cause harm. The equal worst thing is to take advantage, or harm someone, something which is at your mercy in any way. Anyone at a lower ability level, any animal or person in your guardianship.
Old man grew up in the inner city. Gramps cheated on his mom and ended up leaving. Old man boosted cars with his older brother for shits, bought his first gun when he was 9. Was a fatty as a kid, started lifting halfway through high school, got huge, and played linebacker. Somehow got into college despite being lazy. Played vidya, ran computer labs and kept lifting. Met mom, dropped out of college to work. Had to fly to Atlanta for work every week. Eventually gets a job as a high-level officer in a billion-dollar company, negotiates contracts. I come along, gets fat and one of his lungs stops working. Uncle dies of cancer, dad realizes he's fat, runs every day as much as he could for 2 years, first marathoner with one lung. Breaks leg, stops running. Trying to get him doing more. Taught me everything about life, it's only fair that I give him this. Owe him everything.
Be me. 18 years old, know of a real social life or job. Heavily depressed. Go to stay with my dad for a while. My parents are split up. Realize I don't have any money for cigarettes. Ask my dad if I can work with him to earn a bit of money. Dad works as a carpenter. Tells me I can work with him for the week and he would pay me on Friday. Start working on Monday through to Friday. Probably the hardest I've ever worked. End of the week rolls by and I'm in the van with my dad. He gives me the money and starts talking.
I'm proud of you, Anon. You showing initiative and asking to work with me made me happier than can ever imagine.
I didn't buy the cigarettes, I haven't smoked in about a year. Thanks, Dad.
Be me, 19. Dad got a new job. Brings up his old workbench from the downstairs that's been collecting dust. What's bringing that upstairs for Dad?
For my new job. Haven't used this thing in forever. Remember these pictures?
He shows me magnets on the side of the bench of me and my little bro from 10 years ago cringe but laugh at how I used to look. Scrawny fuck with buck teeth because it was before I had braces. Notice he had baseball-shaped silly bands in his bench drawers. Damn, this thing really is old. Where'd these come from?
You guys gave them to me so I kept them in there.
He says happily as he rolls it into the next room. Sit there and smile as I realize my dad really has cared for my little bro and I all these years. Feel sad because when we were that little my parents were going through a rough divorce. Mom manipulated bro and I to hate my dad. Replace the sadness with happiness once more. The past is in the past. I love my dad.
My dad's a badass. Grew up super poor inner city with teen mom. No access to healthy food, got fat. Really smart, got into college. Lost weight, life of the party. Worked his ass off. Now is head of cancer biology lab at prestigious university. Upper middle class. JPEG. Still fit, took up long distance running. 50 miles for 50th birthday. It was a trail run in the mountains. I was too young to sign up for cool bike ride for cancer research. Really wanted to. Dad trains for me, does 150-mile ride in the freezing cold winter. Loves and supports me for whatever I do, even though I'm fat and can only do 15 miles. Feminine. Has automatic respect of everyone in family and general public. Quiet but astute and wickedly funny. Love you, Dad.
Dad was an overweight attorney who loved to cook. Married my stepmother who was hot but crazy. She had a daughter already who wasn't attractive and grew up to be a drug dealer. She forces my dad to basically ignore me as much as possible and ensure that her daughter gets everything. Every time I visit, would spend weekends there, would always feel like a second-class citizen. Stepmother gets cancer. She dies after 13 years of it, with my dad providing first-class medical care the whole way, along with all the expensive trips, cars, etc. Her daughter gets her own house, paid for by my dad, while I'm on the other side of the country living in a house with 6 other people. Dad finds out that stepmom was actually cheating on him with his best friend, who had passed away a year or two before she did for most of their marriage. Stepsister even told me that she caught her and him together once. Dad finds that she took out a $200,000 life insurance policy on him once without telling him when they took a trip to Mexico with his best friend and his wife. Assumes they may have been plotting to kill him. Dad goes through relentless depression and isolation. Cuts nearly all his other family out of his life but me. Just working and watching movies. Cuts stepdaughter out of his life. She goes berserk because no more jibs. Dad eventually loses weight and starts walking a lot, which is a hell of a lot more than he ever did when I was growing up. Dad isn't exactly fit but is significantly healthier. Starts coming out of his shell a bit. I take him on trips to some cool locations and we bond a bit more. Dad starts dating his high school one-itis who is still hot for a woman in her mid-50s. All the other lawyers seem to be retiring or dying off, so my dad now does all the big murder cases in his area and has never been more successful and doesn't have to piss away money on stupid things and their nonsense anymore. I'm proud of him.
A random memory I remembered today. 2004. B7. Mom is strict, so I must go to sleep at 9 p.m. even during summer holiday. Her aunt passed away, she goes to the funeral and is only back by morning. Want to see Shrek 2 in the cinema. Check the cinema schedule. Go to 6 p.m. one with Dad. Accidentally checked yesterday's schedule, the film started at 5 p.m. with the next one starting at 8:30 p.m. Upset. PNG. Dad says he buys 2 tickets for the 8:30 p.m. Shrek 2. Surprise. JPG. He says Mom doesn't need to know, it'll be our secret. Movie ended at 10:30 p.m. When we went home, Dad let me play Tony Hawk's Underground till 1 a.m.
The 19-year-old depressed NEET. Live with parents. Unmarried sister gets pregnant because of her BF and doesn't want the kid. But doesn't want to abort either. Kid is born, beautiful boy. She abandons him at parents' home to pursue her dead-end acting career. Parents and I basically take care of him. Love him like my own son. He calls me Papa. Son grows up fine. I get warehouse job to have more money to make him happier. Start jogging in the morning to have enough stamina to play with him. Son is great at academics, gets A grades. Start getting along better with my own parents since we're taking care of my son together. Work harder and get promoted. More money to buy son toys. Experience firsthand what raising a child is like. Love him. Now I'm 36 years old with a managerial job at a shipping company. Son has gone to university this year. Parents and I are very lonely with nothing to do all day. Wait for son's call in the back of our heads all the time. My sister is still struggling with her acting career. Son calls her Auntie Elmao. Son is coming home for Christmas. Can't decide what to do to celebrate his first year at college. Almost know for certain that if son hadn't been born, I would have probably jumped off a building to end my pathetic life.
Me about 6 years ago. Meet a girl on Facebook. We hit it off and date. Few months into it, she gets pregnant. We decide on adoption. Fast forward to delivery day. As my daughter is born, I decide I can't and won't give her away. Baby mama tells me she doesn't want her, and if I want to keep her, it's all on me. I say alright, take the child and move back in with family. Raised the child for 4 years on my own with no help from her mother. My family helps out here and there. Finally save up enough to get a place for us and pay rent a year in advance. We move into a 1-bedroom. She gets the bedroom, I sleep on the pullout. She is 5 now, her B-day is on the 17th. I've worked as much as I can so she will have stuff for her B-day and Christmas.
Be me. 8 years old. Playing around in my dad's car. Looking at the gauges. Think the car is empty because the fuel gauge says low. Remember that he has an important meeting in town the next day. Idea.webm. Hatch a plan to fill up dad's car for him with the garden hose. Decide to surprise him in the morning. He starts the car.
What the hell, I thought I only had half a tank.
Surprise dad. Car dies.
What did you do?
Explain. Dad's pissed. Going on about how he's going to miss his big meeting. Calls taxi. Taxi takes forever but arrives. Taxi drops me off at my grandparents' house 3 blocks away. Grandma comes running out screaming like a banshee. She rushes me and Dad into the house. Look on the TV. 9/11. TFW, dumb shit, as a kid saved my dad.
I am a Russian immigrant and my dad is the chattest chat I've ever known. Dad grew up on a farm. Rough life. Did farm work since age 12, worked in a factory since age 14. Boxed for 8 years since age 10. Had a fight club street fighting thing going on with his buddies. At 18 was drafted and volunteered into Afghan war. Unit got ambushed on a mountain road by enemy combatants. Saved 2 of his friends' lives that day. Got shot in the lower abdomen and 7 shrapnel wounds from a grenade on his back. Recovered, discharged with a shitty medal. Went to school to be a geographer. Joined the party. Went back to Afghanistan, worked with GRU to draw military maps. Worked on some secret satellite stuff for a bit. Traveled all over Europe working for the government, helping them make maps, I think. Met my mom in Belgium. Mom moved to Moscow with my dad to study. Dad quit working for the government right before USSR fell. Started his own business with his friends, manufacturing steel building supplies. Sold his business after 10 years for a bunch of money. Moved his family to Belgium and then to Canada. Taught me everything I know. He never lifted weights, but he was a huge fucking guy in his prime.
My grandfather's fitness origin story. 1934. My grandfather is a senior in high school. Scrawny and noodle-armed. Bullied by 3 chads all throughout his junior and senior years. Towards the end of his senior year, he decides to attack his bullies while they're harassing him. Gets mauled, obviously. His father asks him for the names of the 3 bullies. Talks to their parents and invites them to his home so that they can discuss things. A few minutes after the bullies arrive, great-grandfather, who was in his late 30s at the time, he had grandpa at around 20, asks the bully chads to come out to the yard and fight him. They're bewildered and confused but reluctantly do so. He effortlessly beat the shit out of all 3 of them and tells them that he'll hunt them down and kill them all if they ever touch his son again. My grandpa experienced a mixture of emotions. Awe of his powerful father. Shame over having his dad step in and protect him. In order to avoid the shame he experienced during those final months of high school ever again. Being beaten up by the Chad trio, having his dad beat their asses for him. He gets really into physical fitness and spends the rest of his life a paragon of strength and stamina. Stays in good health until around 94 or so. Enters a decline for a few years, dies at 97.
Grandpa escaped Ukraine during World War II with his mom and 11 siblings when he was 4. His dad was drafted, captured by Stalin, killed and presumably tortured. Flee to South America with his family. When they arrived, they had nothing except a small lot in a field that was given to them. Built their own house out of clay. Cooked their food over a fire and used a homemade stone oven to make bread. Walked to school through the jungle. Childhood and teenage years were basically spent surviving and learning survival skills. Migrated to Canada when he was 19. Got a job as a framer, spoke barely any English, but learned quickly. Overall, he spoke 6 different languages. I met my grandma at a dance. Said they instantly had a connection, but she was going away to live in Europe for a year and travel. Gave her his phone number and told her to phone him when she returns if she's still interested. Remember, kids, this is far before any form of social media. She calls him. Get married. I have 3 kids. Grandpa would commute 2 hours to work and back 6 days a week and work 12-hour days framing. Saved enough money to buy 5 acres. Slowly got into farming as a side hustle. Started making so much money farming he quit framing and became a chicken farmer. Became very wealthy. Built a new house on his land and tore the old one down. Was able to spend more time with his family and take them on trips to Hawaii and Disneyland. Bought himself a quad and a 5th wheel and a piece of property in Whistler. His kids grow up, his daughter has a kid, me. Spoils me rotten, bought me my own quad, and then another when I grew out of it. Bought me N64, PS1, GameCube, Xbox, PS2, Wii, and games. Would order in food every time I went over there for a sleepover. Bought me my first gym membership when I was 17, He paid up front for an entire year for me to get me going. Bought me my first car brand new. Died just a few months after cancer. I didn't realize how lucky I was.
My grandpa dropped out of school at 14 to work full-time at a logging company. He met my grandma at a party, and from what I'm told they had relations, and he got her pregnant all in the same night. And then he put a ring on her because both their families were deeply Christian. And in those days you could be disowned from your family for doing that. They went on to have 3 kids. My grandpa started farming and bought his first lot at 21 for $400 and built a house on it and sold it. With the money he made, he started his own contractor business that my dad is now the CEO of, and my uncle is the foreman and head site guy on every project they make. I've never heard this directly from my family, but I've heard from numerous third parties that my grandpa is one of the wealthiest people in my city. The family company owns so many pieces of land, apartments, warehouses, commercial lots, restaurants, stores, plazas, all of them paying rent every month. My grandpa was one of the most humble people you'd ever meet. You'd take a look at him, how he dressed, the vehicle he drove, and you'd think he was just your average old man who worked an honest job. He didn't like spending money on himself, and he didn't live as well as he could. I heard stories about him being in the ditch digging with the blue-collar guys all covered in mud, and then the business people would come around looking for the CEO of the company, expecting some guy in a suit and tie, and he'd crawl out of the ditch and say,
"I hate doing this business stuff, but let's get it over with."
He was by far the hardest worker I've ever known, from a different era. He literally worked right up until he was diagnosed with cancer, and in the hospital. My dad took him to Mexico for special treatment that isn't yet approved here, and it worked temporarily. But the cancer came back, and when my dad told my grandpa that they're going again, my grandpa looked at him and said,
"No, I'm done. My fate's in God's hands now."
He passed 2 weeks after.
I only ever met my grandpa from my mom's side. Dad's dad passed away before I was born. Mom's dad was an absolute Chad though. He was a construction worker and overseer assigned to bridges throughout Southeast Europe and all the way to Iran. He liked running and he really loved hiking. When I was a kid, every so often he would recite a hunter's poem to me. This were explicitly made to rhyme so as to be more memorable around a campfire and to be more appealing to children. I loved those, and I will soon be learning them so I can do the same for my children and grandchildren. When I was a little older, he talked about mathematics, physics, and astronomy to me. Astronomy was his favorite hobby. He knew all the constellations, most of the stars' names, and, on a basic level, understood some astrophysical processes. He was really proud when I entered a science gymnasium at 13. He also had a boatload of old magazines on nature, astronomy, and even one on fringe scientific theories which featured the first occurrences of the ancient aliens theories. I owe both my scientific and naturalistic curiosity to him. Sadly, he passed away before I finished high school, and he never saw me start my PhD. I do think about him fairly often. I loved him.
My dad was probably a Chadlite back in the day when he was fit and doing counter-intel shit in the army. But for as long as I can really remember, he's just sat on the fucking couch watching TV, and in later years playing stupid-ass microtransaction games on his tablet, drinking beers he hides in his closet and around the house. When he wasn't on the couch, he was always working, even though he was frequently fired and bouncing around crap security management jobs, while my mom was the primary breadwinner with a very successful career. Honestly, I resent him for just kind of giving up. I had to teach myself all the standard skills you expect a father to teach. He doesn't live, he just sort of exists. Frequently will spend 9 hours a day sitting on that fucking couch since he lost his most recent job and apparently can't be fucked to find a new one. His weakness as a parent and provider have definitely been a strong motivator for me to get my shit together, and showed me what mistakes to avoid. Now I'm a 24-year-old paramedic, should have a firefighter position within the year, and I found a 20-year-old QT trad girlfriend that wants to settle down and have a family. Just because my dad didn't make it, doesn't mean I can't.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.